stayed on the topic of debates, we have some sound from a friend of the show, Sam Harris, who is actually such a friend of the show that we did a episode last season entitled Sam Harris is Wrong About Everything. And part of the reason that we're doing this, so our graphic designer, J. Andrew World, who's going to be joining us for the next segment, is the one who kind of brought us this clip. And I have to admit, it stretches my confidence that he's wrong about everything. I think he's wrong about like 97% of everything.
But 3% of the time he's spitting facts, huh?
Yeah, 3% of the time he's not entirely wrong. Fortunately, since it would really disturb me if I completely agreed with Sam Harris about something, I think that I'm a little ambivalent about some of what he's talking about, but it's still an interesting clip. So for a little bit of context for this, for anybody who doesn't have the unhealthy fixation with his characters that I do, and I mean, like Jake, I mean, you're a union organizer, before you started doing this, and still, like, how much do you know about the characters in this saga?
Oh, not a ton, to be honest with you.
Okay, that's good.
And I'm very online, so somehow this kind of slipped under my my radar.
Yeah, that's yeah. Well, so that's healthy. That's good. To not know tons about them. Unfortunately, because of stuff we're doing for this show and before that for TMBS, when we do Harris debunks, and also helping Michael with his book Against the Web, where he has a whole long chapter on Sam Harris. I've spent way too much time thinking about Sam Harris, and even a little bit too much time thinking about Bret Weinstein. So these are two of the leading figures in a branding exercise from 2018 called the Intellectual Dark Web.
Oh, so, yes. Okay, this I know about. Okay.
Yeah, right. So the IDW, right, the Intellectual Dark Web, which is how you always have to say it, is something I believe Bret's brother Eric originally came up with the term, but it was most popularized by empty-headed former New York Times columnist Barry Weiss. They're people I respect who think more of her than I do, but for me, the top line is always that she wrote these like weird vapid columns, and that she like sometimes claims to care a lot about free speech, which, if she really did, fair enough. I care about free speech, but also she spent a lot of time as like a college Zionist activist trying to get professors fired for being anti-Israel.
That's just speech, just more speech. Speech asking to get people fired, right? That's yeah, no contradiction there.
Yeah, fair enough. Speech asking for people to be executed for their views. It's speech. Yeah. So in any case, Barry Weiss wrote this profile in 2018 called Meet the Renegades of the Intellectual Dark Web, where she profiled this group of dudes, all dudes. Bret Weinstein and Sam Harris are the two that are going to feature in tonight's story. Our other friend Ben Shapiro, who I believe actually, as we speak, I don't think it's live anywhere. We'll have to wait for the video, but as we speak, I believe that other Ben is debating our actual friend Anna Kasparian in Los Angeles. So looking forward to breaking that down here in the future. I expect that she will wipe the floor with him. But in any case, Ben Shapiro, Sam Harris, Bret Weinstein, his brother Eric, Jordan Peterson, and a couple other guys. Weiss was not the one who wrote that article, but the New York Times really was going on a spree there, since this was around the time, yes, as Dave reminds us in the chat that they ran an article referring to Ben Shapiro as the cool kids philosopher. So there's I mean, I'm not going to say it's the worst period of the New York Times. They did print all that Judith Miller stuff about the Iraq War, but it's not good. Let's say that, not good, bad. But in any case, yeah. So the idea was, right, the metaphor, the intellectual dark web, is that it's like going on, Silk Road to buy drugs online. That there's stuff that's like just too hot for like, in this metaphor, the regular web that shows up in Google results. This is like the secret subversive stuff where they're going to tell you these hidden truths, which was always a weird fit with the fact that they got a glowing profile in the New York Times where they were all like doing this weird photo shoot where they're all standing around like some like shrouded in the darkness, with some like plants in the background going like this, but in any case, I would recommend anybody who wants to read all about these guys do read Michael's book, Against the Web. But this is 2018. That these sort of reactionaries, but the kind of people who mostly would say like, oh, I'm not a conservative, I'm a classical liberal, and also maybe a conservative. The big exception was Ben Shapiro, who I think would have been a more natural fit in a group that was like, I don't know, Sean Hannity and Ann Coulter or something. But other than that, right, it was mostly people like this. And the idea was they were super daring because they believed that, I don't know, gender was real or something. And since then, though, there has been a bit of a falling out. And the falling out, of course, was due to the final stages of the Trump presidency. And Sam Harris pretty much had standard, culturally liberal sort of like, blue state, professional, managerial class sort of views about all of that stuff. And which, don't get me wrong, is the lesser evil in this particular context. And some of the others, including Bret Weinstein, had a very different reaction. And Bret Weinstein got very into Trumpist conspiracy theories about the election. And he's also gotten very into COVID conspiracy theories. And that is the context of this clip.
The reason why I don't want to do a podcast with Bret and Heather is the same as why I wouldn't do a podcast with a 9/11 truth conspiracy theorist or Alex Jones or anyone in that world. Because there's a basic asymmetry which is very hard to overcome. It's so much easier to make a mess than to clean it up. It's so much easier to light several small fires than to put them out. It's like a 10-to-1 advantage. To put it that way, it sounds like my concern is not losing a debate, and that's absolutely not my concern. If you're going to view this as a debate, it's won almost immediately. But I worry about what people take from the encounter, and I just don't want to do additional harm to our public conversation about what is in fact an important public health concern and a growing political one. First, the asymmetry. The reason why there's such an asymmetry here is that it is just impossible to debunk most things in real time. And even if the point being made is in fact spurious, it won't seem spurious to 99% of an audience, right? So the person on the conspiracy theory side of things can say, well, what about the 14 CDC officials who resigned last week and wouldn't give reasons when asked? What do you make of that? Right now, there's probably nothing to be made of that, right? I didn't even hear about it. And the truth is, I just made that up. But when delivered in the context of a, quote, debate about these things, with someone whose whole angle is there's conspiracy everywhere, it can seem like, oh, you didn't know about that. Well, that's clearly a problem. You should look into that. What about the paper that just came out of Micronesia that showed ivermectin was 100% effective? I didn't see that paper out of Micronesia. Oh, you didn't? Well, okay, you should really do your homework. It's possible to just scatter a lot of dust in the eyes and ears of the audience and make it seem like there's so many anomalies out there. There's so many things that need to be explained. And if you're not going to explain those things, if you're not going to connect this particular pattern of dots, well, then you're just not doing the work. And that need not necessarily be done in bad faith. Of course, it can be, right? It's a tactic. But that's not what I'm alleging Bret and Heather would do. I'm just saying that's the way they think now. It's such a scattershot approach to this. There's so little quality control around the kind of information they're putting forward. And it takes such an effort to chase it all down and debunk it. And anything that shows up that's new in the conversation can't be tracked down in real time. So I don't have much hope that a conversation would wind up producing a document that would be good for the world.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Like, all right, it's bad enough that Sam is not wrong about like the larger thing, which is like COVID conspiracy theories are bad and dumb and dangerous. But I at least thought when I saw, when Andy brought us the clip, and I think he'd seen Sam Cedar talk about it. I think that's how it came to his attention. He's not a regular, Sam Harris, aficionado, as far as I know. But I at least thought, okay, well, I am actually going to disagree with this because I knew that the point was that he was saying that he didn't want to debate Bret Weinstein about the COVID conspiracy theories. And I kind of thought, that his reason would be the sort of standard reasons that people will give to not debate conspiracy theorists, that like, oh, you're like legitimizing it, or something like that. You're treating it as if it's up for debate and that's bad. I actually do find all of that super unconvincing. I mean, obviously, right? I mean, I wouldn't have been in Phoenix this weekend. Fun fact, actually, Charlie Kirk did. There was like a moment where he kind of hinted at some conspiracy theory stuff about COVID. It was for like 20 seconds though, and I was thinking about picking up. I was like, this is really not what I want to argue about today, right? Just let that sail by, But let's get back to the minimum wage and healthcare and all that stuff. But I obviously do generally disagree with those sorts of reasons for not debating conspiracy theories or not debating anything else. I think that the idea that we can make bad points of view go away by pretending that they're not there, I'm pretty skeptical. I don't think that really works. I mean, sometimes maybe for things that are super marginal in the sense that like hardly anyone believes them. But I think that for anything where you're already worried about a large number of people accepting something, I think just refusing to engage with it is generally a bad strategy. But I got to say, I mean, I don't know what you thought, Jake, but watching this, thought, all right, well, he's doing a lot of his Sam Harris tics about how he's presenting it, and that annoys me. But especially at the end when he said, yeah, like a virologist, sure, right? Like I'd like a virologist to debate Bret, but he's kind of right about this. Like, yeah.
No, he definitely has a point when it comes to these kinds of debates, right? We cut out that part of the clip, but he does say at the end that okay, on issues right of public health or the vaccine, I'd rather have a virologist debate them. But I guess, but after your debate with Mr. Charlie, I guess one thought is if you're able to focus debate on, maybe there are ways to have productive debates with these types of people, and there are ways to not, right? So maybe he's painting with too broad of a brush there, as maybe the one.
I think think that might be right. I think that, so on the one hand, like, I'm actually pretty sympathetic, like, on a personal level to what he's saying, because I don't know, if somebody asked me to do a debate about COVID conspiracy theories, I might actually say exactly what he's saying just now. Like, don't debate me. Go find, you know, an epidemiologist and, you know, and debate them, because, like, what the hell can I really say that's going to be going toe to toe on the details, right? I think it's good to kind of know your limits. But the reason that I'm ambivalent about it is that I think, even though I might very well say what he said here, and I think he definitely has a point about the ways that debate can go very wrong, and about how there are other people who might be better to have it. I think all of that stuff is true, right? But even so, the reason that I'm a little ambivalent is I think it's a mistake if people who aren't experts are never arguing with conspiracy theorists about this, especially because, like, just to do a very goofy analogy, apologies in advance, but, like, in this case, right, there's no stopping the spread, right? I mean, the conspiracy theories are already everywhere. At this point, like, you need to actually, you know, like, you need to actually do some sort of treatment or vaccine or something. Like, you know, you can't just hope to stop it with distancing. Given that, I think it is a mistake if everybody all the time, just who's not an expert, just says, no, don't talk to me, just talk to the medical experts. Especially because, like, a big part of why, of, like, what the conspiracy theorists are saying about this stuff is that you shouldn't trust, you know, whatever, the medical establishment or something like that. And so I think probably it is good to do some debates with these people sometimes, but you want to be real careful about the ground, like the terrain on which you're having it, because I think what you need to do is just to be super honest about, look, I know you spend your entire life like glued to a computer, like reading, like, you know, like just coming up with, like, talking points and little bits and pieces of data, you know, that are supposed to support this conspiracy theory. I do not, and I'm not planning to start, you know, so, like, I'm not going to say that I could go, like, I could tell you exactly what happened with this report, or, you know, or what about the study in France that shows this or that, like, you know, maybe, right? But, like, Sam is right about the problem with doing factual debunking on the spot. That, like, sometimes you could do a little bit of that in a debate, like, especially if it's like some super common talking point that you've heard 100 times before and you kind of know it's going to come up. But, like, really, what are you going to do? Just, like, stop while you Google it and, you know, and, like, and look at it and say, well, that doesn't sound quite right. You'd Google a couple other things and, like, 10 minutes later, you'd have a good response, but, like, you can't really do that in a live debate, which is actually why I think generally the least interesting thing to do in a live debate is to spend all of your time arguing about the empirical facts, which, you know, you're not in a great position to do at that moment, and people following along can't check right that second, like, without losing what you're saying. You know, you're much better off focusing on the arguments about how the different pieces connect. So I do think that. But that said, I think that, like, there's probably some value in doing, like, a really open and honest debate with a conspiracy theorist where you acknowledge that you're not going to be able to follow them down all those rabbit holes. But what you argue about is, like, what's generally the best way of trying to figure out what's true about stuff like this. Does it make sense for everybody to, quote unquote, do your own research about incredibly complicated factual issues, or does it actually make a lot more sense if you spend your, you know, to have a epistemic division of labor. Like some people can become experts on this thing, they'll report back to me, and some people become experts on that thing, they'll report back. And that doesn't mean that you have to take things absolutely on faith. That if like the connections between the things that they're saying don't make sense, we can argue about that. But generally speaking, are you better off when it comes to a purely factual issue? We're not talking about values. We're not talking about what we should do given these facts, but just like, what are the basic medical facts, right? Is it better to sort of try to cobble that together from some combination of, YouTube and Reddit and the Weinstein family, or is it better to try to figure out what the consensus is of people who actually spend their lives studying that?
Yeah, I don't know, Ben. That's a good question. I'm still doing my own personal research, and when I'm done, I'll get back to you. But this could take some time. So
yeah, fair enough. And I mean, there are interesting questions here, because like I think that a lot of liberals like take the core of what I just said and go way too far with it, and everything they want to be like a technocratic expertise issue, when really a lot of things are about conflicted interests and conflicted ideologies, and so there are questions about where to draw the line there. But like, if you're going to defer to experts about anything, it should be like medical science.
No, and I face this with arguing with anti-vaccine people I know that are coming from a good place. I face this too, where it's like they're like, I don't trust elites, and I'm like, I'm right there with you, right? But I do trust these medical elites, right? So it does become a more nuanced conversation.
No, that's right. But if you could have a conversation about that like, I think that's the terrain in which it might make sense to debate conspiracy theorists, not having a conversation about, what about, do you hear about these results about ivermectin in India? And, what about, this study, this one place that said that? And, what about the dissonance, from the World Health Organization panel and whatever the fuck you've never heard of and I've never heard of. Like, that probably is not productive. For that, I think Sam Harris, I hate to use these words in this order, is probably right. But for the conversation, but I think it is probably productive to debate them on the topic of how is it that all of us as non-experts should try to figure these things out. When does it make sense to defer to experts? When doesn't it? I think that's probably useful. Also, though, I know I should give, for the sake of equal time, I should give the counter argument to my claim that before we go to the next segment, my claim that you shouldn't get your information about this from YouTube, Reddit, and the Weinstein family. And the counter argument is that according to Bret Weinstein, his family's insights, his brothers, I think there might be somebody else, would have won them like 20 Nobel Prizes, if not for the something called the distributed idea suppression complex. So maybe you should actually get all your information about this from them after all.